Okay, this is the Law, Ordinance, Zoning, and Permits Committee, and it is August 3rd at 7 o'clock. I'll call this meeting to order. We have all members are present, Mr. Triplett, Ms. Ault, and myself, Mike Richard. Also present is our Mayor Larry, Law Director, Mr. Palmer, our Building Inspector, Eric Baldinger, and also our Council President is here, Mr. Watt. The members, if you've had a chance to look at the minutes, or if you would, take a moment to look at it.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from July 6th.
I'll second that.
Mr. Triplett made the motion, Ms. Ault seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. The minutes are accepted from the July 6th meeting. The agenda, is there any additions or subtractions? If not, entertain a motion to approve the agenda for tonight.
I'll approve the agenda for tonight.
Ms. Ault made the motion.
Second.
Mr. Triplett made second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll start right in. The mobile food vendor, we've talked about this a little bit in previous meetings. Who wants to take this right offhand? I know, Mayor, did you want to take it?
All I would say is that we continue our rigorous enforcement of the existing ordinance. Not really. In fact, I just commented before we started that the ice cream truck is down in the park right now. I think the other more recent issue that brought this to our attention, the guy that has the hot dog truck, he is probably more itinerant than the ice cream guy. But that's really how it came back up. I don't think there are any problems, if you will, uptown, but so I'm not sure what the need of making a change or codifying it, but I'll listen in. That was a pretty lame presentation, Mike. I don't have a presentation other than we're not doing much with it the way it is, but if we want to permit them and authorize them, we could move in that direction.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, I just wanted to let the committee members know that the last time this was a topic of discussion, you asked for 2 changes to be made. Those changes have been made. One is that mobile food units can operate in our park for 12 hours as opposed, I think it was 8 before, and that was a request that was made. The other one is the removal of the inspection fee that would be given to the City of Galion Fire Department. Now it's just an inspection, and it's valid for a year, but there's no cost.
Okay, is that part of the ordinance referenced here?
Yes.
Yes.
2021-69?
Yes.
It's on page,
Those changes are reflected in what you have before you.
on page 2, 730.04A.
Okay. Yeah, I know that's a lengthy one. So, Mr. Palmer, do we need to pass this out, make those changes, or how should we go about this?
You don't need to make change, you don't need to amend it, it is as it is before you. You would either decide to pass this on to full council for their consideration, or if you don't feel this is appropriate to enact at this time, you can just let it die. It's up to you.
Well, I got a question. What brought this up in the first place? Because we've had vendors, like in front of 1803, and there's never been any permit charge or fee. What brought all this on? Does anybody know?
I think
The hot dog guy?
Yeah, I think that was kinda how it was, that's kinda how it got started.
Plus, do we even have a specific on food trucks?
No, we don't. It's covered under, we have a couple of ordinances that sort of cover it, or at least touch it as a topic. I will say that most cities these days have experience with food trucks and have a food truck ordinance. And what this ordinance does, I will say, is basically allows them to operate in the city of Galion. So one could look at it as protection for their operation, but whether or not you think it's necessary, you know, I can't speak to that.
So, come Oktoberfest, is every vendor gonna be charged a $25 fee?
That's covered under our use permit that we have with whoever the operator of Oktoberfest is, so that's outside of this.
Do they get charged?
I don't know the answer. Nikki would know, I don't know.
They pay a spot fee, I think,
Well, to
yeah.
whoever puts it on.
And I think, if I remember correctly, another reason why we were discussing this was before we just had, for lack of a better term, random food truck kind of show up, and we've become more and more of a interest in folks doing that in our community. So I think that's the other reason why this has come up before on this committee.
Yeah, the brewery was down for close to 2 years, so it was an issue with occupying parking spaces and stuff, and then when that operation went through that dormant period and then COVID, there wasn't, you know, the weekend issue concern. If I were to weigh in on it, I would either adopt these minor changes or leave well enough alone.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I look at it. But
That's,
yeah.
No, I was gonna say, no, Mr. Palmer, there is a reference to an application fee in here on that ordinance that you have listed.
Right, I was referring to the inspection fee.
Oh,
It
inspection.
doesn't, there is an application fee, that's correct.
Oh, okay, okay.
Which you can
And
certainly
then
change.
second permit,
Yeah, but you can certainly change that if you'd like, or remove it even. But,
how much different is this really than what's already on the books?
quite a bit, because what's on the books doesn't really address food operations.
It's itinerant vendors,
Yes,
the
it's a
language.
broader, sort of vague peddlers kind of.
But aren't all food vendors covered under the state?
As far as an inspection and a safety or food service, yeah, yes. I
So
don't
this
think
would
that-
really just be adding more regulation to what the state already has.
I wouldn't argue. Yeah, that's a way to look at it. It would give us an idea of who is out there and make sure that they have all those permits. Make sure there's some communication between us and the health department. It's about all you'd achieve.
what do you think, Kara?
I understand what Mark's saying about kind of putting a little bit more red tape about it, but I also like that it spells out about how long you can leave the food trucks parked. You can't have them up near a sidewalk so that you can't, you know, obstruct the path. I like that it puts a little bit more measure to it rather than just kind of willy-nilly.
Yeah, now myself, I think that, I kind of agree with you, Karen, but also I'm not a big one for a lot of red tape out there either. One of the things I think that I would like to take off of this would be the permit fee. I don't think we really need to get into all that. I think that's, just like the mayor indicated, to knowing who's out there and who's operating in our community as a individual under this umbrella, so to speak, is more important than collecting
Are
a
the
fee.
door-to-door knockers, they just get a background check and an okay, there's not a fee to that, is
There
there?
is a fee, I think it's $15. Yeah,
It's a lot like that, the guy that from, that's not a commercial, but the guy from True Green that knocks on your door whether you ask him to or not, that guy,
Yeah.
or gal.
Kirby.
The curb, yeah, that, you have to get a permit to do, a solicitor's permit, and that's 15.
I'm pretty sure it's 15.
So at least you would want them to show themselves, at least as a solicitor. I don't even know the logic behind why that would be $10 more.
I can tell you the $25 and the $100 you see there is from another city. This was largely copied on, I can't remember which community it was off the top of my head, but that's why you see that there. And it is really typical, as with the solicitor's fee, and it's just, cities do that as a way to provide ongoing income, but it's, as long as you have a requirement that there is a permit, you don't really.
Well, the
need
other,
that.
the other thing to consider, I was considering is the other end of the spectrum, the folks uptown handling this, as a, filing just an application as a matter of knowledge, so to speak, as
Yeah.
opposed to exchanging money and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
See, there's a part I don't like, is residents and businesses are exempt.
So that would be the lemonade stand. You know, the definition of a mobile food truck, I think they don't, it doesn't have to be a truck, or does it in that ordinance, but motorized, self-propelled. So I think that is part of what's trying to be achieved. It's pretty customary if you're going to have a permit to have some sort of a fee attached, and so I don't object to that small fee, but we collect a lot of money up here for pavilions and those things, so I would see in the solicitor's permit and all that, that's done here at this office, that's probably what would be downstairs.
The folks that we've had
Mhm.
active in our community to date, are they residents of Galleon, or are they incoming?
No, I think the one guy I talked to lives over in Marion, is trying to do it as a sort of a side light, the Marks, and that it was called the ice
Used to
cream
be
truck.
Cyrus.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in Bucyrus,
Okay.
Like the hot dog stand, I think he's a gang guy.
yeah.
I think the ones that come to 1803 are primarily out of town,
Okay.
Mansfield, kind of.
So anyway,
I like it how it is. That's just my thought. I think if we're gonna be processing the paperwork and doing all that, we should charge a little bit of something. So,
What do you think, Mark? You wanna?
I don't, it makes my head hurt. This business part, does that mean that the food trucks that go to 1803, they're exempt?
No. If you're looking at the bottom.
I'm looking at B.
Yeah. It says that if it's for a private party or a catered event, then the businesses that have a one-time food truck don't have to file a permit and get a permit. So obviously for a private party, that would be the food truck that shows up on their
Pour
property.
to cook, is that even around anymore out of Richland County? Dale Cook's operation is to that kind of thing would be a,
So like an auction vendor, like the, you know, at an auction,
Yeah, there's a good example.
yeah, like if something, it's on a private property, it's just there for during the auction and then.
There could be some more clarity put in that, Mark, that would make sure that, you know, that it refers to that kind of a business event and not an ongoing business.
I just think we're overregulated now, but that's my own opinion. So,
Well, what do you think? You want to go ahead and maybe make the changes that Mr. Palmer had suggested as far as the business issue, and then, but go ahead and send this on the council, let the overall council decide one way or another? Or do we want to take and keep it and hash it a little bit more next time?
I don't know, you can only hash it so long, and it's been
Yeah.
hashed,
Yeah, that's true.
so,
Well, if that's the case, let's do this. Mr. Palmer, if you would be so kind in reference to what we just, Mark mentioned about on the business end of it,
Right.
to make that change, or verbiage rewording, and can we then go ahead and pass this through, or is that gonna need to be?
What's gonna happen is it'll still need to be voted on next Tuesday.
Okay.
But you can tell them at that time that you've looked at this already.
Okay, so do we need to make a motion to put this forward, or?
Yes, I
Okay.
would say it's a good thing to say that you've done that.
Okay, so if that's the case,
That's your choice.
is there anybody like to make a motion to send this on to full council, which would be 2021-69?
I'll make the motion to send ordinance number 2021-69 to full council.
Motion from Ms. Alt. No? I'll second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, anybody opposed?
no.
No. Ms. Triplett's opposed. Motion carries 2-1. Okay, next thing on the agenda is the equal opportunity ordinance. So this is something you've really kind of talked about stuff.
So we talked about it last month, and we kind of left it with not really coming up with anything. I think what we're looking at here is kind of what another city used, is that kind of gives the definitions and how to kind of put it into place. Mr. Triplett had brought up about the size of the town and all that. I sent some numbers through email about comparable cities and all the cities in Ohio that have these protections for housing, employment, and access to public services, and just kind of broadening our definition of anti-discrimination in town.
Mr. Palmer, I believe we've already got a, well, kind of a guideline on the books, for lack of a better term, correct?
We have a housing discrimination ordinance.
Right.
Which we've had for a very long time. One of the two parts of what you have before you would change the definition of discrimination to include new categories that aren't currently included. And that's when you see 51502, and it's a very small
Yeah.
change there, that's what that would do. That would take housing discrimination and broaden it to include, so it would read, basically, person's race, color, creed, sex, marital status, religious belief, national origin, age, familial status or handicap, sexual orientation, gender identity, and/or gender expression. And again, that's from what the other cities that have adopted this, that is how they've changed their housing discrimination ordinance, just by changing the definition.
Right. Well, that question is, too, is how is, the state, is this similar to what the state has listed or the county has listed? But I'm assuming they would have.
If you take away the last three elements of this, yes, that is what the state has.
Okay.
The county can't.
County's not gonna do the business.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But the state has discrimination protection, but it's limited to everything on here except for the last three component parts. Those would be added, and that's what these other cities that Kara has referenced have done. And that's just the housing component. You know, I was asked to look at other cities as well in terms of employment, and in terms of access to public services, and those are that would have to have a complete new chapter of Guyana Codified Ordinances adopted, and that you do have before you.
That's at chapter 5, the XX.
Oh, that's that whole section.
Yeah, that's that whole section. Yeah,
It would be adopting a completely new section of Guyana Codified Ordinances that does not currently exist, and there's no laws on the book for the city that deal with these issues.
Okay, so, and that's, well, let me ask this. What would be, say, for employment situations, how, we don't currently have an ordinance related to that, or is that covered under the state?
It's probably federal.
Or federal? Well, that's, you're probably right, Mark.
Again, this would be one of those situations where there is federal protection against discrimination, but it would not extend to these particular classifications.
Because so essentially, we would be adding a whole new section to the codified ordinances, is what it amounts to.
For these particular areas, yes. For housing, you would not need to, you could just change the definition section in the ordinance which already exists on our books.
515.
Okay. Well, I think, given the parameters on that, I really think that we probably should at least have a chance to look at all the paperwork here that we've just gotten. I know I just got it recently, and I know the members have just received it also.
We did get it last month also.
Oh, did we get it last month?
Yeah.
I must have missed
So,
that, I'm sorry.
yeah, so we looked at both of these last month, also. And I don't think that Thomas changed anything in them.
I did not.
And whenever we looked at it last month, really the only question that was kind of brought up was just, is it something that would kind of benefit such a small area? And I don't think there's any negative things that can come from this. It's not like there's nothing bad that can happen. I think it's just something good that, you know, promotes inclusivity and just kind of opening the door to people to come back here after they leave and go to college, and just making us more kind of desirable to younger people who want to move to town, and protecting just everyone in town with employment, housing, everything. I think, you know, it's a lot to add a whole another ordinance in, but I think last time whenever we talked, the city hadn't updated or added anything in equal opportunity for over 20 years. So I think as times have changed, it's time to kind of add these sorts of things in and go with it.
think?
I don't, it makes my head hurt. I just don't understand some of these definitions.
Which ones?
Like gender, perceived. There is no perception in your gender.
There is too.
No, there is not. God created man and woman. Period.
You can feel that way, but don't you want everyone to feel to be protected? Would you want someone to be able to be fired because of that? From their job, lose their livelihood, their housing?
I guess that's why I have no comment.
And Mike, what I would add is that the way I look at that is not to look at it defensively, like there's something currently wrong. I think we've had a couple situations that neighborhoods dealt with what could have been discriminatory kind of activity. I don't hear much about it. It's more of a to assert going forward that we're going to recognize things have changed in the last 20 years. A couple of those terms make, that I'm not entirely comfortable with them, but I understand why they're included. I understand what couldn't you, I'll even name them to make everybody who might be watching this, including my spouse who's watching. The gender. Like, oh, I get that. The gender identity. Where is that? Help us.
J.
J. All right. Yeah, there it is. Kind of makes an older person wince a little bit, but I do think that it's the right posture to adopt if we're going to change it. You don't take out something that makes you slightly uncomfortable. So that's my thoughts on it. But we should approach it as whatever changes is something that's going to make discrimination from housing, update that, and then address it in employment and in other areas. I think it's something that's fluid, and I think that people are increasingly their identity, it's not closeted in any way, and so you're going to see people be more assertive. I'd hate to think somebody who, because of hairstyle or some set of mannerisms, they put their job in vulnerable status. So I know it doesn't happen here at the city. Nobody is penalized for perceived or real differences or whatever. But I can imagine there's advantages to being positive on the employment side. That's probably too much to say. There's some employers who will see this as a really positive thing. They understand what the language means. They aren't wincing. They may be smiling. And I think there's upside to be gained. So I'd look at that as a positive thing for Galleon. So, anyway, how'd that help the discussion? Mushed around in it, it's like if it were grapes, we'd be well on the way to having wine.
Well, I agree that I don't think that a person should be discriminated against them for, be honest with you, for any reason.
Mm-hmm.
I think it should be a situation where it's on the merits only, and that's it. Of course, this is areas that gets into definitions and various other things.
Mike, I might say something. Just it's not in a mocking. Maybe we should have a survey.
We should not.
We're not having a survey, okay. I mean, I think, this is a good, I wasn't here a couple weeks ago, or a month ago, I guess, and wasn't able to participate, but I think, I was surprised by the lack of discussion or comment on the topic. Either it just glanced off the windshield like a bird that went on and flew or something, or it's no big deal. So I think this conversation, again, different points of view, if there is a reaction, positive or negative, now's the time to weigh in. I think this is the right area to keep the discussion going. I'm not a fan of bringing it to the council floor and having people dramatize it, stage their position on various sides of it, because it's not a either or. It's really, in my view, multifaceted. People have a lot of different opinions.
Right. Well, and I agree with you on that, and I think that's the reason why it wasn't a large discussion when we had the first time, was because, quite frankly, it's, for me especially, it is something I'm not, other than just a few individuals, not really exposed to. And so, and I'm of the old stuff, I'm going to say that, I shouldn't say that word. I am of the belief in certain things, and it's a difficult discussion to have, no matter who you are, whether on which side of the coin you are on it. But again, I go back to the original thought, is that we are I like to think our community is actually a combination of the old, the good part of the old, the good part of the present, and the future. So to be encompassing that, there is going to be this view that we're going to have to be mindful of.
A lot of buyers and builders of new and existing homes have, they're just, it's a different family unit. They're different buyers. They're different buyers.
Yeah.
And it is awkward for people who are trying to get used to dealing with it. So I think I agree with you. It is kind of awkward, but.
So I guess my question to the members is, do we want to go over this some more? Is there anything we want to add to this before we, as the mayor indicated, before we pass it out, to make sure this is what we, good, bad, or indifferent, feel about it? I'm getting the impression that maybe it's something that we could maybe take and let it go for one more committee meeting for the next month, and then that way you give the opportunity for the folks that are watching tonight to give some input into it too.
Is there any part of it that you think needs changed or looked at, or just have more time to mill on it?
I don't have anything against anybody, no matter what race, color, sexual orientation, or nothing. But I'm the belief that God created man and woman, and that's how I believe. So, however you want to do it, I don't care.
And I think too, just to say, by saying that this is, something that is a good thing, isn't saying that you agree with any part of it. I think it's just saying that you don't agree with discriminating against people. So,
That's the key, is that we aren't going to discriminate, and
So it's not saying that you believe any of these things, or that you think they're good things or bad things, or it's just making sure, you know, that people are, I don't know.
One thing that Mark said, and I agree with, that, you know, I don't think anybody in this room wants anybody to be discriminated against for any reason, you know, so. Well, I guess I'm gonna ask the committee here, do you wanna take and dwell on this? To go over it one more time to make sure there's something in there that we might need to change? Sorry for my voice, before we pass this on, or we wanna go ahead and just,
I don't need any more time to look at it, as, that's just my opinion, so I guess it's up to you guys.
I don't think we need to hash it anymore. It's been hashed. It's, you know,
okay.
what, just let the whole body decide.
I kinda agree with that too. So, having said that, I'd entertain a motion to move.
The ordinance,
Ordinance has not yet been created, folks, so. you would-
Okay.
You could, like the last one, you could move it out of here, and ask an ordinance to be created, but it would need to be voted on Tuesday.
it'll be 2021-70, I can go ahead and give it a number.
Yeah.
And then it can.
Do we wanna do that, or do we wanna take and wait till we get the formal verbiage?
It's gonna delay it a month and a half.
Yeah, this, I mean, other than the X's, I think it's,
Yeah, it's gonna be very straightforward, but we need to put it in ordinance form.
Right, okay. What do you think, members?
I think we should just move it as 2021-70.
Okay, so I guess the motion would be then to create ordinance 2021-70, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, to encompass the equal opportunity chapter.
Could I just interject here? Julie, it might actually be two ordinances. I know it's the same general topic, but the amendment is gonna be different than the enacting a new chapter.
Okay.
So I'm gonna respectfully suggest we need two of them.
Well, let me back up a second, because you've got this, and then you've also got
This.
the current ordinance, which is, that.
And then-
Yes,
so
that's
this-
what I'm saying.
This could be 71.
So it'll be 70 and then 71.
Okay.
One will be the amendment to our current ordinance, the other one will be creating a new chapter in the codified ordinance.
Okay, so what we, then I can hear a motion to create 2021-70 and 2021-71 as it relates to the equal opportunity chapter, for lack of a better term.
I'll make the motion to create ordinance 2021-70 and 71.
Okay, and motion made, seconded by Mr. Triplett. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Mr. Palmer, go ahead, and if you would please
We'll be done.
rate those.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer.
Yep.
Okay, next thing on the agenda is the dilapidated building houses. I kind of put this on here as a discussion, kind of stemmed from a situation that came up with cats, but but my question, I guess, the reason why I brought it up was, I know this ordinance that we have related to that is it's been around forever, so to speak. Is there anything that we need to look at in the sense of, do we have an issue that we need to maybe tweak that ordinance to either create more teeth in it, or, because I know I hear it from my constituents concerning dilapidated buildings, you know, all this. I'm gonna ask Mr. Baldinger, because he's the man that is out and about.
As far as the cats go, no. We don't, the city don't enforce the whole cat situation.
Oh, no, I'm not, I just use that as a reference, no, it had nothing to do with the cats.
I feel the ordinances we have, take care of it. The biggest thing is, if we wanna do more trapping, having a trapper trap at these locations more for like raccoons and groundhogs and skunks. We would just, you know, I don't think the ordinances need to be changed because of that reason. They're in there in the property maintenance code.
Okay, well, I guess that's kind of more my point, because I know, and I know in our community, buildings, run into these issues where the family, has an elderly individual that lives there, they pass away, they live outside the town, there's all sorts of parameters in that regard. But like I say, what brought it up was the situation with an animal in a building, which not really concerned about the animal issue of it, shouldn't say it that way, but it's more of a situation of the building themselves because of property values related to those issues and things like this. So you're saying that you're pretty much, what we have on the books is.
Yeah, would take care of that. I think
Doing
what
it.
we would really need to, how to fix it is, my opinion, would be to have some funds, which we do now in the demolition funds, and act on our intent to demolish, send out the proper notices, and then if they don't comply, follow through with demolishing the house if it's a true nuisance. If the homeowners, the property owners don't wanna comply with our requirements, then we demolish it and we assess the taxes and follow through that way. Cause I personally feel that we do one or two of these and send that message out, it's gonna get more people motivated
Yeah.
to move along.
Yeah,
So, because right now, you know, for years and years and years, we haven't had the money in a fund to be able to do this. And the people they pay their property taxes on them, so we can't tax foreclose on them. There's no liens, there's no bank foreclosures being done on them. They just sit there and they just rot and rot and rot. And, I mean, you can't keep boards on them or keep the holes plugged, because you have people actually coming around feeding these animals and tearing the boards off so they can go into these places. So the true way to remove it is to remove the nuisance in general.
yeah, oh yeah,
And
for sure.
Are we talking about an individual place or?
No, just general,
Nice.
yes.
I do have a comment from online, and this is from Samantha, and it says, has Thomas looked into tightening the abandoned cat laws and tightening the feeding of feral cats outdoors, which the health department investigates? Anyone that has outdoor cats must be spayed and neutered, and rabies vaccination and chips as the minimum. So,
If you do feel the need to look at our cat laws, I mean, those that, I don't want to single out cats, but our animal nuisance laws, that's something that I could prepare for you and bring to the next next committee meeting, if that's a topic you'd like to consider.
Well, I tell you what, since this has kind of been brought up, if you would be so kind for our next committee meeting, we'll delve into that and see if there's anything that we need to address.
And that way Sam or anyone else who has an issue with the issue can come and express whatever that would be.
Sure.
And if someone did want to report like a nuisance property, what's the process for doing that?
they just contact me.
Okay, so just call up and talk to you and
Yep.
say, okay.
Yep.
Now, I know we've been very good at following up with nuisance properties and such. And I know, just for the folks that are watching, the demolition over here, excuse me, it's over there. Do we have a date when that's due to be?
You start the 17th and
Yes, 16th.
16th, what I was gonna add, that there will be money in the appropriation to go ahead and tackle a couple of these. So one of the things that we should move to the top of the list is sort of refresh the list of condemned properties and make a decision about which ones have the biggest impact, which ones you could get done, those kinds of things, because there's far more houses on the list than there would be in the budget. But I think going back a year or so, council made a decision to go ahead and fund it and try to chip away at that. The third source that we talk about, and we don't really control it in any way, and that would be the land bank. We participate in it, but they have some money that I think Eric and we think, and others at City Hall think they should reallocate that, put together another round so we can knock out a few more of these. But
Sure.
we, there's enough for it, probably 2 smaller properties in that existing budget. So, we'll be reimbursed by the land bank for 25,000 of the roughly 40,000 it's gonna take to tear that down. So, anyway, I mean, everyone in this room can think of a couple properties within their neighborhood or within real, near wherever they walk or what, that could really use that. So how you build any sort of inventory and rank them has been a little bit of a stumbling block. But, and it's taken us a long time to get that sold because of getting it from the property owner. And then once it's city property, then we have a real, is it 6 weeks we have to advertise, I believe, 5 or 6 weeks, so it takes longer to advertise the demolition of that. So, anyway.
Well, at least we're making the effort to get these properties and work on reducing these properties in the communities.
I think if we get a little more efficient at knocking them out, then in a future budget, I don't even know if next year's we'd be ready to take on more, but if there are resources, there probably will be in 22 and 23 money to do this. I think it remains, I think if you just rely on what the land bank can do, we're gonna be always falling behind. So.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to touch on this for tonight. Does anybody have any comments or questions further on this? No? Okay. Let's move on to the next thing, which would be zoning amendment, State Route 309 from MHR to GC. Who would like to take this?
Eric and we're both on planning commission. I was voted out of planning, recommended to change the zoning. It's the attic storage, there's a photograph kind of in the middle of that packet. It's the property just to the east of attic storage. The only kind of odd thing about it is attic storage is in the township, but the property they want to build on is in the city.
Okay.
So they need to change it. It's one of the last parcels, or maybe the last parcels, where it has a manufactured home.
The last, 'cause we don't know all.
Yeah, zoning. And so that's just to change to general commercial. So it's,
Yeah, I was going to say, just for everybody, including the folks that are watching, the manufactured home is what we're talking about. We, as a zone, which we really have eliminated manufactured home being referred to as a trailer.
yeah.
So,
So it's pretty simple and straightforward, and it'll need a public hearing, needs to be voted out. Julie set a public hearing, and then it'll make its way to the council floor.
There is, Mr. Chairman, a GC zone property across the street, so there's no spot zoning issues here.
That's your.
that was going to be my next question. Yeah.
So that is that.
So, what do we need to do, Mr. Palmer, in this
Vote it
case? Just vote it out. So we need to have
Well, it's gonna have to go to public hearing.
Yeah, there'll be an ordinance at the public hearing, I don't know
Yes.
the ordinance.
So just have a vote to.
Well, you can have a vote to move it on to a public hearing.
Right, that's what I was gonna ask.
I'll make
So,
a motion to move it to a public hearing.
okay, I have a motion move this to a public hearing.
I'll second that motion.
Ms. Ault seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. This will be moved to a public hearing then. The next thing on the agenda is a, excuse me, zoning amendment, State Route 61, from RE/HC to IP. And somebody's gonna need to help me with that.
Yeah, the map's not the greatest, but it is, the large, farmed parcel that's in the city limits, just, south of 30 and 61. So I would describe it as the southeast quadrant. One of the key things in getting land ready for industrial development is you have to have a motivated owner. This, I think Mr. Leader is becoming, increasingly motivated, sufficiently motivated to change the zoning. So this will match up with some other large parcels out there in that southeast quadrant. It's,
Is this where Deems was on
yep,
that side?
yep, on the other side of that little roadway, that private drive, that's owned by a different owner, and I believe it's already zoned appropriately. So this is there's a big borrow pit in the middle of it, and but I think it's what you might describe as prime developable ground. It needs to get the zoning classification to match its intended use. That's what this does. It begins to answer the question of, can't we bring new industry? Well, you have to have the right parcel and the like. So we've got utilities to get out there and some other things, but this is, I think, an important step to get it zoned properly.
Now, specifically, this then is as you're going up 61, this would be the east side, just south of 30?
Yeah, right, and where there's all those buildings,
Yeah.
that's a different owner, but everything south of that drive that goes back in
It's
there.
kind of a back.
Yeah, back there,
Okay.
really, I believe it butts up against the Kide property,
Okay,
which I think is already properly zoned.
okay. Now, this is not a spot zone either, is it, or anything? Okay. Shaking
Not
no.
listening
No.
to that one, so.
No, there's IP.
There's
Like
under
he's
there.
kind of right
Okay.
across the street, the type.
Actually, the zone code now is kind of a spot zone.
It
The
is,
zone
Oh,
now
really?
is kind of a spot
Okay,
zone.
so this,
kind of
this
needs
would
cleaned
be-
up.
This would be a cleanup
Yeah.
for that then, yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
So this needs voted out
Yep.
Yeah,
to a hearing?
For a public hearing,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll vote it out to a public hearing.
motion to vote this out, or move this out to a public hearing for the change RE/HC to IP. And
I'll second.
Ms. Alt second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carried. This will be moved to a public hearing then?
Probably on September 14th.
Okay. Next thing on the agenda is street name change. This is related to part of East Street, to change it to Covert Way. And I'm gonna ask who would like to take this.
I don't know how the way got attached, but I don't have any objection to it. The request came, it's been a while, honestly, from people at the company about potential name change. And wanted to explore that. There's really no way to explore it quietly. You have to go through the committee process and such. So their request was to rename East Street. It was unanimously voted out by the Planning Commission, sent to the committee. The issues to be aware of or consider are the changes of address to the people along East Street.
Correct.
Mostly to the south. There's one business that's been there generations, literally. And so those would be the only complicating factors to making that change.
Would there be?
But I have a suggestion.
Okay.
which it would probably have to go back, why don't we take Wood Street from South Street to East Street, which encompasses Covert's entire property, and name that Covert Way, and then you wouldn't mess with the business and residents on East Street.
That's a good point, because I know that you have, like, the mayor indicated, there's one business there that's been there quite a long time, plus there's also 4 other residents on that street. So, plus the other thing would be is, when you go to renaming streets with people on it, the postal, is there an issue with them in regards to that?
There's a change that has to be made, and Mark's idea is definitely a better path. It's a path of lesser resistance. I'm not even sure if I know there's probably 1 residence, and we didn't check. That's really.
Just,
Yeah,
if I
go
might
ahead.
add one quick thing, Mr. Chairman, just for the sake of the television audience. Everyone's been calling it East Street. It is East Street, but it's a portion of East Street. We're not talking about the portion of East Street that crosses Harding Way East.
It goes down by Caleb's or all the way down to.
Yeah.
Oh, East, that whole.
It's a section of.
Yeah, it's called,
Southeast Street.
yes,
Yeah.
well, there's some that say it's South East Street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so there would be some kind of concern if you went that way.
Yeah.
That's not what's being proposed. What was voted out was East Street. I think Mark's idea is another way to do it, and probably involves less of those address changes.
Right.
I believe there's only one house that has a Wood Street address.
Blevins?
It's that real tiny one right between Pierce and,
Yeah.
Rivulet and Pierce.
I don't honestly think there's a individual living in that house
No,
right
it's
at the
vacant.
moment.
It's vacant.
But
Just
there
sold.
is between Pierce and South, there's a
South.
couple places right there.
The one's got the Pierce Street address, and I think the other one's got a South Street address.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Well,
actually, you're
ding,
right.
ding the bell.
But, like you said, though, this would have to go back to planning again.
But, I mean,
Well,
the
here-
public hearing's out far enough, because it has to have a 30-day, it's out till September 14th, so they would have time to meet again. I mean, I could go ahead and,
Let me point out too, one thing is that, Covert had asked the mayor's office for this. We probably should back it up to check with them if that would be fine with them. You know what I'm saying? And then if that's the case, again, send it through planning again, and then when we get it, we can process it through.
Yeah, I'll check with them. Mark was in this morning, we were talking about some things, and I mentioned this, and he came up
Well,
with the idea.
I actually
it's-
think that's a very
it's a-
good
It's a
alternative.
cleaner shot, and it accomplishes the same purpose. All of their properties are, off of Wood Street, so that would be kind of a nice way to do it. If you didn't know, you'd think they put the street in years ago themselves.
well, and I think it gives them more kind of, from South Street, you'll see a sign that says
Yep.
Covert Way, where back here is kind of like.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I
Well,
agree
yeah,
with you.
because they have access on that one side off of Wood anyway.
So we'll contact, in our office, we'll contact the company, confirm that this, hopefully will work for them as well, and then the planning commission can meet prior to that public hearing. So what you're saying, Julie, set a public hearing for the name change?
Yeah, I'll just do them all, we'll just do them all at the same time, the
Okay.
14th, because I have time to
September.
advertise that for the 30 days,
For
So do
September?
we need
September
to
14th, yeah.
make a motion to send this
Yeah,
out?
it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. We're gonna have to look a little bit about procedure here, if that's okay.
Okay,
If you go ahead, if you are
Well,
have
let's-
consensus on this
what do you think? I know Mark is.
Send it out to who?
for a public hearing.
Well,
Well, shouldn't we wait till they find out if it's
yeah, I would say let's wait.
all right?
We'll just
You
vote it
could,
onto,
yeah.
we'll just vote it onto the agenda because all these will have to vote once we have the ordinance, but.
We may have to have a public hearing on a different date, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I would say let's back up, let's see if that's fine with the business that's asking for the, road name, and then go from there, and then if, I mean, worst case scenario is, it's 30 days down the road, so to speak,
Could
you
be
know?
2 weeks.
I mean, it's not like it's
It could
not
be
gonna
that
be.
second meeting in September.
Yeah, it's not a catastrophic deal, but I think that, yeah, I just wait on that and wait till get the information for sure on that. So, anything else on this then? Okay, that was the last thing on the posted agenda. Is there any other business?
I have something, if I could, really quick.
Sure.
The mayor doesn't even know this.
Yeah.
I got this,
Good.
email, yes, pardon?
I said good.
Yeah, it's not bad, it's not.
Surprise, I'll be back surprised. Go ahead.
Okay. We got an email yesterday from the Ohio Municipal League, and in particular from the General Counsel for the Ohio Municipal Attorneys Association. Rather than trying to explain it, I'd just like to read this to you. It's not very long. It has to do with the opioid settlement, which is being distributed. The Ohio Municipal League received an opioid settlement update yesterday. The proposed settlement is with 3 of the largest pharmaceutical companies. Johnson & Johnson has yet to settle. If Ohio settles, it's either going to be the first or the second state to settle. Both the Ohio Attorney General and the Governor are recommending settlement. Time is of the essence with an August 13 deadline. This, by the way, is why I'm having this conversation with you tonight. For the attorneys to receive consents from municipalities, townships, and counties over 10,000 in population. The proposed settlement amount is approximately $804 million, divided among all municipalities, townships, and counties, including those under 10,000 in population, paid over 18 years according to a complicated formula. The guaranteed settlement amount is 55% of the gross settlement amount. If benchmarks are met, it can reach 100% of the settlement amount. Municipalities, townships, and counties receive distribution in 2 ways, individually and also on a regional basis. Counties may also distribute its monies for the benefit of municipal programs. General Counsel Gary Hunter is recommending settlement. As soon as the Ohio Municipal League receives the participation agreement, settlement summary forms which show the projected amount your municipality will receive directly, and various other documents, including a draft ordinance, will be sent to you. We are recommending the signing of the participation agreement be authorized by council action. Since time is of the essence, it's recommended that you call a special council meeting next week. We don't have to because we already have one scheduled. And adopt the authorizing resolution with an emergency under suspension of the rules. Further information will be forthcoming by Monday, August 2nd. Hasn't come yet. We've all been asking for that all day today and hasn't arrived. So I'll let you know how much it is, but just want to let you know that, and that there will probably be an ordinance on Tuesday about it.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Anything else then tonight? And next meeting will be September 7th here at 7 o'clock. And with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Triplett made the motion, Ms. Hall second, all in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned at 8:04. Thank you very much, everyone.
Seven.